All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Bienvenue. Bonjour à tous. Gwe and Atelier. So welcome to Community Connection. My name is Carol Spicer, and I'm the owner of Spicer Facilitation. I'm located in the beautiful community of Pasadena on the west coast of Newfoundland and Labrador. Pleased to welcome you to our bi-monthly Community Connection, which is an opportunity for you folks that work in the not-for-profit sector to get together, share experiences, talk about what's happening in your organizations, and then we often have a guest join us as well, which we do today. I do want to take a moment before I go much further to acknowledge that Pasadena is located in the unceded territory of the ancient Beothuk. And I do acknowledge with respect the diverse cultures and traditions of all the Indigenous people in our province. So the Mi'kmaq, the Beothuk, the Innu, the Inuit, and the Southern Labrador Inuit. Personally, I was just in Nain and had the experience of working with the Inuit up there. I've worked with the Mi'kmaq and I'm learning. It's always a learning experience for me, but I'm really learning the differences between the Indigenous groups. And as a non-Indigenous person, I'm fascinated. So I do ask that you kind of take a moment to think about where you're joining us from and acknowledge with me all the Indigenous folks in our province. So thank you for that. So this is, for those that are new to Community Connection, welcome. We've got a few folks that may not have joined us before. As mentioned, this is a community for the not-for-profit sector, and probably about 80% of my clients are in this sector. And interestingly enough, I kind of seem to have landed in this niche. And I find that many of you have the same challenges. You're dealing potentially with the same populations of people, just different services. And this is my way of giving back to you. So I want to provide this opportunity for this sector to come together and talk and share and learn and promote each other. And every now and then we've got some fantastic guest speakers, and I'm really excited about today's. So I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourselves, let folks know who you are, where you are, what organization you're with. And I'm going to run alphabetically by first name down the list. So Andrew, you're up first, and then Cyril.
Okay, can you see me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Hibbets, and I'm an Economic Development Officer for the West Coast with Horizon TNL, formerly known as Red A TNL. We are a bilingual economic development organization with offices in St. John's, mainland on the Port-au-Port Peninsula, or La Grande-Terre in French, and in Lab City. And our mandate is fairly broad. It involves tourism, immigration, employability, and entrepreneurship. So we often work with many small businesses, job seekers, community projects, things related to tourism. We do the French version of the provincial tourism website and a tourism guide. Yeah, so very nice to meet you all.
Excellent. Thank you. Bienvenue. Cyril. And then I'm going to skip over you, Danielle. I'm going to go to Katya after that. So Cyril next.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cyril Tobin. I'm the Executive Director for the Newfoundland and Labrador Housing and Homelessness Network. We are a non-for-profit organization that work on issues pertaining to housing and homelessness in rural Newfoundland and Labrador. We are located in St. John's because of our proximity to government agencies and departments and so on. So it's quite appropriate for us to have that access. As I said, we do most of our work in rural and remote Newfoundland. We are not a frontline agency in regards to providing housing directly to clients. We have a provincial training center here that we do online training as well as on-site training. We work with 10 community advisory boards throughout Newfoundland and Labrador, 8 in the island portion, 2 in Labrador. Those are comprised of various community organizations that work in the areas of intimate partner violence, youth, housing, seniors, all different organizations, and we work on both regional and provincial organizations. Also here in St. John's, we operate a social enterprise called the Network Cafe. This provides an opportunity for marginalized individuals to enter or re-enter the workforce. And it's done on their terms. We meet the individuals we're there to, as opposed to us having to fill in requirements of what we would say a regular job. The intent, of course, is to provide a supportive and non-judgmental environment to these individuals, as well as to help empower them as they move forward on their path to recovery or future direction. So I think I'll leave it at that. I could keep going for about an hour, but that's pretty much it. Nice to meet everybody, and I look forward to the session.
Excellent. Welcome. I had the pleasure of working with Cyril's group, and they're a passionate group of people, and Cyril's passion always shines through. I've also been to the Network Cafe in Pleasantville in St. John's area, and if you get a chance, fabulous food and a great training center. So I can comment on that.
Thank you.
Katya, you're up next, and then Melanie.
My name is Katya Muir. I work with the Residential Support Board in Stephenville. I'm the manager for our houses. We provide the closest semblance of normalcy for people with disabilities and behavioral challenges in the community. I didn't really have anything planned to say, so I'll leave it at that. That's what I do.
That's excellent. Thank you. Welcome. So nice to see you again. I was out with Katya's group in the fall. Melanie, you're up next, and then Sharon might be driving. So if Sharon can speak, I'll ask her to speak. But Melanie, you're up first. You're on mute.
My name is Melanie Wells. I work with CCRW, the Canadian Council on Rehabilitation and Work. We are a disability and work nonprofit. We're found all over Canada. The program I work with specifically is a virtual nationwide program for people who identify as living in a marginalized gender, as well as living with a disability. So myself and my coworker are on opposite ends of the country and do pre-employment programming, supports when seeking employment, employer advocacy, job development, all that stuff, right across the country. And we aim to hit some of those more remote or rural areas that might not have as many supports in place. And we do it all virtually, so people in places without accessible transportation are still able to avail of our services. And that's about it for me.
Excellent. Thank you. Melanie, you're in St. John's, right? You mentioned, I think you said.
Yeah, I'm physically in St. John's, but the program is for all over Canada.
Right. Excellent. I'm seeing some synergies here already. So many of you are dealing with similar clients. Sharon, I think you mentioned you might be driving. Not sure if you're able to speak there.
I can always talk, Carol.
Okay, perfect.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just so pleased that I could at least listen in this morning. I'm here listening, and I have two hats on this morning. I'm a board member with Newfoundland and Labrador Organization for Women Entrepreneurs, and I also own and operate Siva Meditation. A lot of my clients, I'm sure, have these same situations. They present these same situations, these stories of suffering and whatnot. So I'm just so glad I can listen in. Anytime I can offer my services, I'll put my website there in the chat box and you can reach out to me. Thank you, Carol, for hosting.
Perfect. Thanks, Sharon. Glad you're able to join. Sharon's a busy lady, so I'm very pleased she's able to listen in. And Lorianne.
I unmuted.
There you go.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lorianne Taylor Banks. I'm the administrative officer with NLWIC, most of them known as it's a short version of the Newfoundland and Labrador Workforce Innovation Center. We are the first to be established here on the West Coast. We are provincial in nature, and we set up as a team of 5. We first started in 2018. And currently we are growing. We currently are a team of 7 right now. And we certainly enjoyed having Carol as one of our facilitators at an event we had. And I look forward to listening to everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Lorianne. Francis, you just popped in. We're just doing introductions. Are you able to let folks know who you are, where you're located, what you do?
Sure. Yes, thank you. I'm not as familiar with Teams. I usually use Zoom. So can you see me? I'm not sure where I am here. I'm looking at a nice introduction thing. I'm not.
We don't see your camera. It might be a laptop that's closed. It might be picking up a different camera.
Let me see now. Sorry.
That's okay.
Let me see now. What I see, just guide me here. What I see is a nice welcome from Spicer Facilitation.
Yeah.
And where should I? Oh wait, now I can see where to put on the video, but I want to be able to.
There you go.
I want to be able to see who I am speaking with. How do I do that on the team? Do I go to the little icon with the people in it? Show participants.
Show, yeah.
Yeah. So, and how do I'm still just like seeing the welcome slide rather than the group. How do I get to the group? Sorry.
You're not seeing the group beside, above or down the side?
Well, not very well. I can sort of, I'm mostly seeing like a beautiful welcome slide rather than like, yeah. How do I go to like the equivalent of gallery in Zoom so that I can see everybody? No?
Do you see the word more with 3 dots at the top of your screen? You might be able to click on that and click on gallery.
I don't see the little dots I normally see. Anyway, I won't. I like to be able to see people when I'm speaking, but I can't. I don't know where I am on this. I'm seeing a nice welcome slide, but not okay. Maybe I hit the slides first. No, I'm just another nice slide. Anyway, so anyway, it's I can't see people very well, and I like to be able to see people when I'm speaking, but it's all good. Yes. Anyway, sorry, Carol. I'm just trying to navigate the Teams thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just want to let folks know who you are and where you are?
Yeah. So my name is Frances Scully, and I'm in St. John's. Yeah.
And what organization are you with, Frances?
Well, I'm in the process of creating an organization, and I'm looking for help and partners, and it is called Be Compassionate NL.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So Danielle, I'll turn to you. It gives you a sense now of who you've got on the call with us. So I'm very pleased to introduce Danielle Peddle, who's with the Gateway Women's Center, and I'll leave it to Danielle to give some more details about herself and talk about the new program that they, well, not new so much anymore, I guess, the program that they've been offering for the past little while.
So hi everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Carol. My name is Danielle Peddle, and I am the Working Through Domestic Violence Program Coordinator with the Gateway Status of Women's Council. So at the Gateway Status of Women's Council, we are a grassroots organization that was founded in Port aux Basques, Newfoundland and Labrador in 1982. We operate a women's center, which provides a safe and welcoming and nurturing space for all women and their families. We work to increase community awareness of gender-based issues and promote systematic and cultural changes. We provide outreach services, assist with resources and referrals, and assist people in crisis situations. We provide education, engage in community partnerships, and advocate for the rights of all women. In 2022, we introduced the Working Through Domestic Violence program. Through this program, we offer free workshops on the effects of domestic violence on the workplace and provide support to employers who are looking to implement domestic violence policies and procedures. Our workshops are designed to train individuals on how to recognize when their coworkers are experiencing domestic violence and how to help and support victims. We offer 2 different training workshops. The first is a 2.5-hour Working Through Domestic Violence Employer and Employee workshop. This is an in-depth training session that dives into how domestic violence appears in and affects the workplace, how to recognize and support victims, and employers' responsibilities to employees. The second workshop we offer is a 1-hour Working Through Domestic Violence Awareness workshop. This is a condensed version of the first that focuses on what domestic violence is and how to recognize and support victims. Currently, we offer our workshops in person on the Southwest Coast from Roseblanche to Deer Lake and virtually anywhere through Zoom. In our program, we address domestic violence as not just physical violence. Sexual violence and non-physical forms of violence can be harder to see, but the impacts are just as harmful. Domestic violence behaviors include physical, sexual, verbal, cultural, spiritual, and psychological abuse, including financial control, neglect, stalking, and harassment. Domestic violence is any pattern of abusive, violent behavior used by one person to gain control over their current or former partner. In this situation, one partner is dominating the relationship and the other partner is afraid. Domestic violence is a global issue that is still very prevalent in Canada. More than 4 in 10 people in Canada have experienced some form of intimate partner violence in their lifetimes, and 50% of women murdered in Canada are killed by their current or former partner. So it is a hugely important and very stressing problem that we do have to focus on. One question that I often receive is why our program focuses specifically on domestic violence in the workplace. This is done because the workplace is often one of the few places where an abuse victim is away from their abuser and private conversations can be held. These private workplace conversations are especially important in small and rural communities where domestic violence supports and resources are sparse and not easily accessed. Domestic violence thrives in isolation, and unfortunately, in rural areas, it can be extremely easy to become isolated and disconnected. There's often no public transportation, and cell phone service can be very poor or non-existent in some areas. This prevents people from contacting and reaching out to available resources, and often they are not aware of the services that are out there to help them. However, by training people to recognize when their coworkers are experiencing abuse and how to support them and let them know what services are available, we can bridge many gaps in our services that are caused by the remote nature of our population. So where did our program come from? In 2014, domestic violence researchers and unions in Canada began to look more closely at the dynamics of domestic violence in Canadian workplaces. A pan-Canadian survey was conducted and was distributed to workers across the country. The results of the survey highlighted some of the key impacts of domestic violence in Canadian workplaces. However, 75% of survey respondents came from BC and Ontario. This made it harder to draw conclusions about experiences in smaller populations and provinces that have high numbers of rural and remote areas, like Newfoundland and Labrador. Domestic violence at work, Newfoundland and Labrador, picked up where the Pan-Canadian survey left off to help address these gaps in researches. Domestic Violence at Work NL was a 36-month project conducted in thanks to the partnership between the St. John's Status of Women's Council, the Canadian Labour Congress, and the Centre for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children at the University of Western Ontario. The project included an online survey, roundtables and focus groups, research reports, and the development of resources for employers and employees and domestic violence survivors. At the end of this project, in November 2020, they published a research paper titled Domestic Violence at Work, Impacts and Issues in Newfoundland and Labrador. I'll put the link to this research paper in the chat if anyone would like to read this report later. So this project found that domestic violence has significant impacts on our workplaces, and some of their findings were that even though domestic violence often takes place in secret, it has significant repercussions and has an effect on the working life of those who live with an abusive partner. Additionally, it affects coworkers as well as the whole workplace's morale, productivity, and safety. Over 85% of survey respondents that said they had experienced domestic violence stated that the violence they experienced at home continued into their workplace. This was typically in the form of abusive phone calls and text messages. The abusive person stalked or harassed the worker or made disruptive personal visits to the workplace. Over 93% of these workers reported that domestic violence negatively affected their work performance in at least one way, mainly due to distraction, feeling unwell, and fatigue as a direct result of domestic violence. 47% said that they had to take time off work because of domestic violence. due to maybe physical injury, they were restrained, withheld transportation, and 38% of those experiencing domestic violence said that it influenced their choice or career path. Over 42% of survivors said that they confided in someone in their workplaces, most often a coworker. Our Working Through Domestic Violence program was developed using this research along with resources from the University of Western Ontario. As a result of these research projects such as these, the government has begun to make changes to protect victims of domestic violence. Some of these changes in Newfoundland are that in 2018, the Newfoundland and Labrador government passed an amendment to the Residential Tenancy Act, allowing tenants experiencing domestic violence to terminate rental agreements early without penalty. In the fall of 2018, the government amended the Labor Standards Act to allow survivors of domestic violence up to 10 days leave from work each year, 3 paid and 7 unpaid, to allow workers the time they needed to seek medical attention, attend counseling or court, and to find new housing. An amendment to the regulations of the Occupational Health and Safety Act came into effect on January 1st, 2020, and requires planning, investigation, and training for workplace violence issues such as harassment and worker-on-worker violence. The regulations also address domestic violence by requiring where an employer becomes aware or ought reasonably to be aware that family violence would likely expose a worker to physical injury may occur in the workplace, the employer must take every precaution reasonable in the circumstance for the protection of the worker. This amendment is designed to make workplaces safer by improving employers' responses to violence, in part by implementing more effective policies and supports for those experiencing domestic violence. These regulations have become an important part of our training workshops as we provide information and education to help employers meet their obligations under the Newfoundland and Labrador Occupational and Health and Safety Act. We've also found in many of our training sessions and the consulting work that I've done with organizations that a lot of the workplaces I worked with were not aware of the 2020 change to the Occupational Health and Safety Amendment. If you actually go into the Occupational Health and Safety Amendment, the section 23.2 where this change was made is not in the main amendment. You actually have to go out and find a separate document, which has affected a lot of people's awareness that these changes were made. So we're finding that not only training people on how to implement and support these changes in the workplace, we also have to inform them that the changes were made. So we're trying really hard to help people be mindful of these changes, but to know how they affect them and that they're actually there. So I thank you guys for taking the time to listen to my little blurb on this training program we'd have. If anybody has any more questions or would like any more information or to contact me, I'll also put my email into the chat box, and thank you so much.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Danielle. Such a deep topic here this morning, but it's such an important topic. I'm shocked by some of those numbers, I have to admit. They're scary numbers. I know, some of the high profile things that we see in the news, but some of those numbers are pretty startling that you shared with us today. I'm looking at the list of folks here and I'm thinking some of the people that you're that are experienced this in a workplace are probably or potentially could end up clients of some of the rest of you on this call, whether they're seeking housing or whether they're trying to get back into the workforce. Maybe they haven't been in the workforces or they had to leave, all those types of things. So I'll open it up to folks if you have any questions for Danielle. Cyril?
Hi, Danielle. Thank you for your presentation. Really appreciate it. I've copied your link and I'll be reaching out to you actually after the session to, because we have a training center here and we certainly want to work quite well. Just as a bit of a history, very familiar with the issues surrounding domestic family violence, intimate partner violence, as my wife was a former executive director of a women's shelter here in St. John's for numerous years. In addition, prior to me coming with the Newfoundland and Labrador Housing and Homelessness Network, I worked with DANL, Transition House Association of Newfoundland and Labrador, and through my current position, We work closely with all the violence against women shelters and partner groups and so on throughout Newfoundland and Labrador. So there is when it comes to housing, and that is a really big issue in regards to individuals finding safe, secure, and affordable housing. Everything from setting up alternate mail boxes and addresses for individuals so they can receive mail, the protection of property owned by landlords, because many individuals, to be quite honest, who are landlords feel threatened in some form or fashion if individuals come in. We also look at it from the social economic standard. Unfortunately, there has been, although education is making a difference on it, there has been a stereotype of the abused individual in regards to socioeconomic levels. But as we know, violence comes from all walks of life, all forms, all fashions. With the ever-changing family dynamics and how the groups are done, of course, we see it in a lot of different lights than what it was traditionally known as. So when it comes to housing, it's quite a bit. Through our social enterprise, we have worked with individuals who have fled violence. And through our ability as a nonprofit here, and I say we meet individuals where they're to, when an individual comes here to regarding employment, we work around their schedule as opposed to them working around ours. So to allow for everything from childcare pickup to attending meetings, session supports, we certainly welcome it. So I just wanted to thank you for your part. I don't want to take up too much time, so I will reach out to you for further follow-up for sure.
Well, thank you so much. I really look forward to hearing from you.
Great.
That's awesome. Any other questions or comments from folks? Melanie?
Yeah, so thank you so much. It's what you were talking about. It's remarkably relevant to what I do. It's like so on the nose. So I'm so happy I got to be here to listen to that presentation. A big part of what we do in this program is, or the big thing that sets us aside, other than being virtual, is that trauma and violence informed perspectives are woven into every email, every program, every piece of communication or job application that we work on with people. And implementing accommodations for clients, many of which who have experienced intimate partner violence in the workplace has been a big part of this program as well. So, you know, sometimes people need accommodations in terms of having their phones on the floor because it wasn't safe not to have their phone before, things like that. Yeah, so I'd be really, you know, again, I'll reach out after this, but it was really nice hearing that. I would love for me and some of my coworkers to chat with you and learn a bit more about what you know and how we can implement that into our work with our clients. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited again.
I told you, Danielle, I'd get you connected to some people. For folks that may not be aware sort of how this came about, I'm working with Danielle's organization about doing the program evaluation. So Danielle and I have been working, we're doing a 3-year project of evaluating the implementation of her program and the awareness. So the more I started talking with her, the more I realized I have a network of people that I think would benefit from her message. So thank you so much for joining us today and giving her your feedback. That's awesome. Sharon, you're up next, and then Lorianne.
Carol, I can't thank you enough for hosting this morning. Danielle, that was a fabulous presentation. And like you, I'm quite shocked at the numbers. A lot of my clientele, I'm going to say 90% of my clientele are female. And my most recent client, I would say, suffers from post-traumatic stress due to, you know, partnership dynamics. And I don't know if she's labeling it abuse, and it's not my role to diagnose these things. However, most of my work is moving people through stress and trauma. I've got a question for you. So if somebody is living in a situation like this and they accept it as normal, is there any intervention, like without crossing any lines? Like I might look at it as like not a normal situation or whatever we call normal these days, but is there anything that I can do to kind of facilitate this interaction, like that your time is like getting somebody out of this. It's kind of a, don't you find like I'm stumbling over my words here? I don't know how to come right out and say what I'm trying to say here. That's how, off course I am with this. I don't know how to kind of move somebody in your direction without saying, you're in an abusive situation. You can't see it, but you really need help. Like, is that my role? Like, what? Help me. Thanks.
One of the most helpful things we found is just making that connection with the person. So, as I stated in the little blurb I said, is that isolation really breeds domestic violence. So we found when trying to make a connection with a person who you think might be being abused or might be in a domestic violence situation, is to start that conversation not necessarily in like a judgmental, you need to get help kind of way, but hey, I'm here for you. I have noticed these things. This is what's going on. Are you okay? Now, this person might not immediately be like, oh, yeah, I'm in a bad situation. I need your help. But just laying that foundation of you've noticed, you've seen it, you care, and not necessarily pushing the person can keep that connection open so that if they reach a point in time when they feel that they can reach out to someone or they need something, they know you're there. And even if this person might not be open to talking about this, just giving them a few references of even numbers to women's centers, people's contact information that they can reach out to, so that they have it if they ever do feel that they really need to reach out, is a huge step. Just maintaining that line of communication. You're there. I don't judge you. You can talk to me. Here's where you can go. That's very, very important. Because a lot of these people can sometimes feel a lot of shame in their situation, even though it's not their fault. They did not bring them onto themselves. They can sometimes internalize what's going on, and it's their fault, it's their problem. They're embarrassed. People are going to judge me. So they can be very resistant to help sometimes because of these feelings. So by making them feel not judged and that is an open conversation where they can talk or come back to you is a huge help.
So Danielle, in your training, the 2.5 hour training, is that providing people tools to recognize potential signs of domestic violence? Because I think, Sharon, in your work, I think what you're sort of alluding to is that you may be seeing something in a client, but maybe you're not 100% sure. Plus, as you indicate, it's not your place to diagnose, but would your program help Sharon and the rest of us maybe recognize some warning signs?
Yeah, so one of the big parts of our program is we do go into some warning signs or risk factors and symptoms that can kind of give you a heads up, hey, this person might be experiencing domestic violence, and how to kind of change the way you're looking at people and different reasons why they may be acting the way they are or things might be happening to them. And I guess to go back to Sharon's question is that a very hard part is first starting this conversation. People want to, but they don't know how. It's awkward. So we provide a conversation framework that was designed by the Center for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children from the University of Western Ontario, called the SNCCET conversation. See it, name it, check it, which is a really great way of how to first recognize what's going on, how to name it not only to them, but to yourself, okay, this might be happening, and how to broach and start a conversation with the person.
Awesome. Sharon, any other comments or questions?
No, thank you. That really helped me a lot, Danielle, and I'm so glad I tuned in this morning. Thanks a million. I appreciate your help.
Excellent. Thank you. Katya.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out Teams as well. So my question, first of all, thank you so much for providing this information and this service. And Carol, thanks for having her around to link us up. My question is for you, like, my concern is with the staff that I oversee. So you mentioned that there's a section in the OH&S that has been changed. So I was wondering kind of two things. if you would be able to share that document with us, so that, because I'm not sure if our policies cover that, but they definitely need to. So I'm new to our organization, and I was sharing with Carol before everyone came on, that when I did start, that we did have what we believe to be one of our staff in crisis situation, but it was hidden. It was like disguised by a car accident, right? So she was unable to go to work. So it was very like I really felt for her, but I felt like there was nothing that I could do to support her. And that's why I'm here today, to find ways like to identify in our staff ways to, so maybe I got to sign up for your session upcoming. So that sounds like a good connection, but yeah, so that's, I really wanted to, I guess, reach out in that aspect. I don't know what my question is exactly there, but I suppose in that, that section in the OHS document that would give us more guidelines on how, because we were it's only suspected violence. She obviously never came to us stating that she had issues. We never heard it. We only heard like rumors. So it was very hard to find a way to reach out to her. So that's my concerns. How can we reach out to staff to, I guess I'll stop there.
So first I will put a link actually to that section of the OH&S amendment so that you can look at it if you like.
Awesome.
Something that we have found working with some of the businesses we have that they found helpful when they don't really feel comfortable necessarily going up to that person and broaching the idea of domestic violence is, instead of handling it necessarily on a person-to-person level, to handle it more openly in the organization. So have some staff meetings about domestic violence in the workplace, what supports are available, what you can offer, making phone numbers for services in your area and preventional service available in public areas, so that this person that you're concerned about, they can see it, they can see that the business has support for them, that they are able to access these numbers and resources through the public area, and instead of it just being at them, so they might not feel targeted or stressed out, and that they can see that these things are available for them.
Okay, that's great. That's what we were thinking, like, was putting some posters up, not targeted at specifically maybe domestic violence, but maybe like a array of help numbers for people to reach out to.
There is the Domestic Violence Newfoundland hotline number, which is a really, really great resource. It's available 24 hours a day, every day of the year. It's available through call or text. And what they do is the system is able to figure out where the person is calling from and connects them with resources in their local area so that they are able to get the help as quickly and as easily as possible. I'll also put that number in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
I see that there's no more hands up, so I just wanted to also, I want to recognize Lorraine Hearn, who was with the Violence Prevention Central Newfoundland, and she's recently passed, and she did great work with violence prevention in Central Newfoundland, and she certainly has helped me over the years. So I just wanted to do a shout out to Lorraine and really appreciate her.
That's awesome. Thank you. Danielle, to me, this is almost like the beginning conversations of when we used to talk about mental illness, which we seem to be a little bit more comfortable, but it's the same type of thing. How do you go to somebody and say directly, we think you're having, feel you're having this issue, and there's mental health first aid now, where focus is on that versus, the broken bones and those types of things. I feel like we're kind of really early stages there with this as well. So I'm really appreciative that we're starting to have these conversations. That's fantastic. Francis, you're up next. Just unmute, click on your microphone.
Okay.
Here you go.
Okay, thank you so much. I was messaging, I think somebody, anyway, I'm still struggling with Teams, so forgive me. First of all,
that's quite all right.
Thank you so much, Carol, for organizing this. Thank you so much, Danielle, And thank you so much, Sharon and Katya, and thank you. So actually, my name is Dr. Frances Scully, and I am a physician, although I just work at that 10% of the time. Anyway, I'm not at all surprised by the numbers, not remotely. So the rates of violence in our society are massive. These numbers probably much higher. So the numbers do not surprise me. Second of all, Cyril and the people talking about accommodation, this is so important because I have worked, I have been with women in a car, you know, I've driven them to a shelter and so on, and there has not been accommodation, and we have been attacked. So the the practicality of it is that when people are physically, you know, are being attacked, you do need to physically have a place they really can be safe in. And there is huge stigma around this, and there is not an acceptance that this happens, and there is a huge emphasis on keeping all this sort of information sort of quiet or private or whatever, and that is so Danielle, your work is vital, really life-saving and vital, and I would like to speak to that. And one of the things I am working on is a book club, and because and one of the books I'm really recommending to everybody is this book here by Dr. Gabor Mate, written with his son, Danielle. And if you are not familiar, Dr. Gabor Mate is a Canadian physician author who has written 5 books up to this. He's got a lot of talks on the, you know, you can find on the internet. But this book, The Myth of Normal, Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture, is fabulous for everybody who is working with trauma, because trauma is hugely common, hugely unrecognized, and this is like a textbook, but it reads, it's very easy to read. Now, of course, I'm very interested in it, and I like to read. So, and it's a massive book. So, you know, but for those of you, but besides anything else, he says it took him and his son 10 years to write it. There are 40 pages of notes. So if you're looking like for data, you know, about something you're trying to show, it's very, very, very well put together. I will stop there because I could speak way too long about this issue and all the information in this book. But and I will just mention that the other book, another book that I'm really promoting, is Earth for All, a survival guide for humanity. And that's put together by a large team, but it shows that globally, femicide, violence against women, is one of the biggest challenges for everything we face, economically, inequality, climate change. It's all very linked to abuse and violence against women. So Danielle, to everybody, thank you so much. This is vitally important, and thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Frances. Would you be able to put the titles and the authors in our chat for us of those books?
I can indeed. Yeah, yes, I will.
Awesome.
Sorry, I was writing in chat, but I was writing to one person. I'm still struggling with the learning.
That's okay. You're making it work. That's okay.
I will put a link to my website where people can contact me, because I have a lot of resources on there.
Okay.
And yes, so thank you. Sorry that
that's
I'm
okay. No apologies.
The Teams thing, but
that's okay.
Thank you, everybody. I'm very delighted to be here, very honored and pleased, and we'll try to put something in the chat. Sorry.
There you go. Awesome.
Yeah,
and I'll encourage everyone else as well to put their contact information in chat. I know some of you have done so, but if you're willing to to share that information, please do. I do send a follow-up email out to my network, and this recording will be posted as well, so people will have an opportunity to view that. Sharon.
Interesting that you should mention Dr. Gabor Mate. He was on national news, wasn't he, on Sunday night? I think it was one evening. He was representing the cases with Bill Cosby for sexual abuse and how, you know, their process and how he was supporting them. I did some training with him online during the pandemic, mindfulness and meditation. So he's very instrumental in supporting this initiative. So I was just going to say, definitely put the information in from the books. Thank you for sharing that.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Danielle? One thing that jumped at me, Danielle, when you described, and this is, I would imagine, is something that would come out of the training, when you described what domestic violence or intimate partner violence is, I think naively, perhaps, you think of the big splash, you know, the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the bruises, and perhaps verbal abuse, but you talked about power, and I think that's an interesting dynamic. I didn't think about things like control of finances or controlling access or things. So, you know, I think, and again, I'm completely naive with it. I will be honest. I remember a coworker going through a situation years and years ago, and we rallied around and we got her some furnishings. We got her out of the relationship, got her into an apartment. This was back in my days in Ontario. And I think it was about 4 weeks after we got her out of that situation, she went back to her partner. And I know we all felt so disheartened, I guess, about it, if that's the right word. But this was many, many years ago when it wasn't as open yet. To Dr. Francis's comment and others' comment, there still is such a stigma. And I like I said, to me, I see the parallels of mental health. We're getting better with mental health, but there's still stigma, but we seem to be having more open conversations. So I think your program is fantastic to start those conversations, because I would say a lot of people don't know how to even start. So I certainly want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Everyone had such great comments and ideas and questions about the training. It's been really fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing me on today.
So I guess one other thing, so logistically, you're offering this program virtually also. Will you travel for in-person? Like if Cyril mentioned they've got a training center, would you be able to travel to do some things in person across the island if it was a larger group?
If it was a larger group, it would be possible. We're definitely offering in person from on the Southwest Coast from Rose Blanche to Deer Lake.
Okay.
If there was something very large, it's possible we could swing it, but I do have a tight budget.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Virtually, we can do pretty much anywhere, anytime. But
do you do
it's definitely
mixed
very open.
groups or just dedicated to employer? Like I'm just thinking there's probably a lot of small employers that may not have a group of people.
Yeah. We're very flexible. I've had people who've contacted me and just wanted to do it themselves, and that's perfectly fine. I'll do it for one person. I'll do it for an employment group or a group of people that want to come together. This session of online ones I'm offering every week from now, it's just open to anybody, whoever wants to register. So some I'll have a group, some might be just 1 or 2 people.
Okay.
But it's really just right now trying to reach as many people as possible.
Okay, excellent. Cyril?
Yes, I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. Carol, you alluded to one of the items. I mean, when we look at abuse, there's so many different components of it that we don't. Over the years, I've been around quite a while, and I'll say in my earlier days, when it came to domestic violence, it was a stereotypical male brutalizing a female physically. Of course, we just see the social impacts, the financial impacts. It comes from a different format. Through the work that we do here and involvement that I've been with, we've seen cases of children abusing their parents from a financial perspective, youth, girlfriends, boyfriends, partners, whatever the case might be, social abuse in regards to, keeping them away from their friends, families, things of that nature. And of course, we look more at determining it as intimate partner violence because family dynamics have changed, groups have changed, abuse is coming out now in all forms and fashions from various genders, various walks of life and everything. So it's being very open and realizing that, it's not what we always thought it was, and it's a bigger education for us. In regards to the training, and I'll contact you, Danielle, for a little bit more, just as a point of information. As I said, we have a learning center. We do training in Labrador everywhere. We do it remotely. We even pay for trainers in certain areas to go locally in various regions and that. So I'm sure we certainly have lots of avenues that we can avail of your service. Thank you.
Danielle's beaming. She's so excited. That's awesome. Thank you, Cyril. But I think you're absolutely correct. I think the definition, and again, I raise my hand as being naive to it, is what you just typically described as has been over the years. And of course, male to female and physical. And then there's the high profile, right? The murdered and missing Indigenous women in Canada, and women and girls, and, a lot of different things. But abuse could be women to men. It can be children to parents. It can be elder abuse. There's so many other forms. As Cyril mentioned, the family dynamic has changed. Francis.
Hello. Thank you, everyone. And thank you so much, Cyril, for your work. I'm so, honored and happy to be here. Delighted to re-meet everybody. Anyway, so just to let you know, my name is Dr. Frances Scully. I was lucky to grow up on the north coast of Dublin, a beautiful place. And so at around age 13 with my mother, I became involved with anti-violence movements because, it's called the Troubles, but kind of war broke out very near us at the time. So I have my whole life been involved with various non-violence movements, and I've trained as a physician and so on. Anyway, fast forward to why I'm speaking about compassion now, and that is compassion is actually the antonym to abuse, and there is a whole science now of compassion cultivation, and a science around a neuroscience around how we as humans are very complicated brains and nervous systems and cultures, and how important culture is for how we respond to different situations. So I'm not doing well with learning this Teams, but I do have a website, becompassionatenl.ca, and there's a resource section there, and I have all sorts of data, but it is compassion focused because compassion is the antidote to abuse. And then compassion can be broken down into different areas. The research shows that for people, and what of course is so complicated is that often the abusers have been abused as well, right? So there, and this is why there's all these intergenerational things, and often, the child or adolescent who's been abused at home is the one who beats up another kids in the schoolyard. And that's why this, zero tolerance to bullying in schools actually has been counterproductive, because all of this relates to trauma and lack of skills and so on, and it's very, very complex. But but the research shows that for people who, and to talk about how profile this is, some of you may be interested. The former wife of President Biden's son has recently written a memoir, and she's talking about issues and anyway, and again, and she says, you know, that she stayed in that situation because she was terrified to go anywhere else, and you know, she liked. She was not being physically abused, but I'm just saying it. And her husband had trauma, and it's very complicated. But the research shows that what generally is lacking for people who stay in toxic, dangerous relationships is self-compassion. And there's lots of research now showing that we can cultivate self-compassion, which is different than self-indulgence and self-pity. And what we're often encouraged to do is, you know, something bad happens, where we'll go on a shopping, you know, our current system rewards consumerism. So you go shopping to compensate. But so self-compassion is not the same as self-indulgence. It's not the same as self-pity, but it can be very tricky to, you know, to decide where we're going with all this. And then there's also, so just to understand, a lot of people have fears of compassion, and it relates to all this because people are afraid, oh, if I say anything here, I'll be the next one, right? And there are situations where one will be the next one. So anyway, it's one has to be very careful intervening, but there's also fierce compassion, which is where we choose to stop abuse and protect people. Anyway, I will stop for now. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you, Frances. Sharon.
I don't know why you're perfect. You're always a perfect segue to what I'm going to say. Thank you for that. My business is all about compassion, Siva meditation. I teach meditation, which is mindfulness techniques that bring you back to compassion. And even as an instructor and as a teacher, I struggle with my students who really don't want, they look at self-care as being selfish. So I worked on a quote for 2023, you know, and it took me 2 weeks to post it on my social media and stuff. And it was it's all about me in 2023. And it's not a selfish, it's all about me, but I did post it on my Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. And I kind of want the public to recognize, people to recognize that, you know, you're choosing self-care, you're choosing quiet, you're choosing silence, you're choosing joy and peace for yourself. And that's where compassion starts. That's when you get self-worth. That's when fear dissolves. So the practice of mindfulness meditation and self-care is all about that. So once you have stability and you have confidence in that, you're able to look at your life and say, you know, what changes need to be made outside now? I understand who I am and what I am and what my purpose is here. I'm not here to be on somebody else's timetable or somebody else's schedule, or if somebody else is affecting my life in an adverse way, I can recognize that and I can return right back to what's best for me and my world. So thank you everybody for all these valuable insights and conversations. I'm so glad, Carol, that you got this conversation started, because you're right. It's all about mental health. And the two things that hold us back is our confidence, and fear keeps us back there. But the compassion, the empathy, the self-care allows us to move into our true power. And that's the confidence that we need to move out of abusive and destructive relationships and to move back into that loving space of giving and purposeful life. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you, Sharon. I know if you weren't driving, you're bowing your head right now. Frances, you wanted to comment again.
I will be short here because obviously Sharon and I could have a very long conversation and enjoy
I'm
it.
thinking exactly that.
So all I will say for now is that Sharon, I don't know, we did meet this fall. I don't know if you remember that, but we met at Enloe because I teach the Compassion Cultivation Training Meditation course, which was designed to address all these things at Stanford Medical School. But anyway, what I wanted to share with everybody now is there is, if you haven't heard of it, there is a Mission Joy international project on the go now. And there's a lady called Peggy Callahan. Well, there's lots of people involved with this, but she has made a documentary movie called Mission Joy, and it came on Netflix last week. It's on CBC Gem. You can find it all over the place. Mission Joy. And there's a book with it, but it focuses on the friendship between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And it's all about overcoming human violence, destructiveness, and without and being truthful about it, not sugarcoating it, but still getting past all that and getting to the joy. So I just wanted to share with everybody here, please treat yourself to watching even the trailer for Mission Joy. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Frances. Okay. Danielle, I'm going to throw it back to you if there's any closing words or anything else that you want to kind of share with the group. And first off, yeah, again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad that my little talk was able to inspire so much discussion today on domestic violence and where it's going in the workplace and how things are changing. I'm so happy about that. I really love these new connections I made, and anyone who has even just a small question they think of later tonight, feel free to email me or message our program on Facebook. I'm always available to answer. Hopefully we can get some trainings on the go and help further this program and get some more awareness built up on it. I'm really thankful that I was able to come in today. This was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I want to thank everyone as well for being open and sharing your perspectives and your willingness to listen and taking your time to attend today. As I said, I think it's, for those of you that work with folks in this, it's probably new to you, or not as new to you, but for those like myself that are, connecting with people in our communities, I think these conversations need to happen at our grassroots level, not just the large media things. So I'm really happy to know that Danielle and others like her are out protecting people in our community. So thank you again for all of that. Andrew, you're located in her area, so if you know of employers that you're working with that Danielle might be able to get to do some in-person stuff out in your region, I'm sure she'd be welcome to do that. So our next community connection is March 14th. So this community connection for the not-for-profit I do offer every 2 months. So understanding how busy many not-for-profits are, I've just put the link into chat for the registration, and certainly I'll have it in the follow-up email as well. If there's any particular topic that you'd be interested in as a not-for-profit, or particular guests that you can suggest, then please let me know. I'm always open to looking for suggestions, and would love to see you in March if you're able to. Again, this recording will be posted on my social media. It'll be link will be sent out in my follow-up emails to my network. Please share with others. Help Danielle spread the message. Danielle, I will include the links that you sent me in one of my follow-up emails so that people have them for registration. And I really, really hope that you get some takers and some increased numbers into your participation, because I just, you know, Katya, I think nailed it. You know, she had something happen in her workplace, and as a manager felt her hands were tied. She didn't know where to go. So I think it helps give all of us, you know, another tool in the toolkit type idea. So once again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you to all the participants, and I wish you all the very, very best, and hope to see you in March. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.